She was murdered in a restaurant in Quevedo, Los Rios province after this meal. Sunday, April 28th of the year 2024, Landy Parraga was having lunch in a restaurant in Quevedo, province of Los Rios. This is in Ecuador. Minutes before the incident, the model had posted a story on her social media where she constantly updated her more than 170,000 followers. Something that at that moment she didn't know but possibly was the reason why she came face to face with her end. Indeed, Landy was in Quevedo to attend the wedding of one of her closest friends and to experience a magical night surrounded by happiness and love. Obviously, no one could have imagined that less than 24 hours later they would be mourning the death of the model and Miss Ecuador candidate. But who could have wanted to harm her? Why did she become the target of this attack? Well, there are many details that involve the model influencer in a network of corruption and relationships with drug traffickers, which possibly left her in the eye of the storm. So, in today's video, we will try to answer what happened that April afternoon when a romantic date gave way to the most gruesome scene possible. Landy Milena Parraga Goiburo came into this world on February 26th of the year 2001 into a family that, while not wealthy, could afford some luxuries in life. Money was not scarce, nor was it the most valued thing in the family, but what was most important to her parents, Raquel and Richard, was family unity and quality time. Fortunately for her parents, she was not a rebellious child, and they had no problems raising her as she was very responsible and disciplined. She had never given them problems or had difficulties in her studies.
She was very loved by everyone who knew her.
Her family and friends had nothing but positive words for her. From her early adolescence, she had become one of the most beautiful girls in her circle, which over time encouraged her to make the decision to want to participate in beauty contests and work as a model, something she was very good at. Her parents supported her in this decision and enrolled her in a modeling school, where she also learned the most important details such as ethics and protocol, and also developed her oral expression. At the early age of 16, Landy won her first reign at an event organized in a neighborhood church. Her beauty, elegance, and poise made her the almost unanimous winner. The attendees at the contest were amazed by the way she had performed both on the runway and when giving her speech. It wasn't easy to realize that the young woman, besides being beautiful, was very intelligent and well-mannered. Landy was not only, as I tell you, a pretty face that stood out for her beauty from a very early age, but she was also a brilliant student and a passionate activist, someone who from a very young age had intentions of using her attributes to make changes in the world. Her character complemented her outer beauty. She was kind and helped in an austere manner, no matter who it was. Then in her free time, she began to support a nursing home for the elderly in Quevedo, and in 2016, she collaborated with the construction of shelters for all the people who were impacted by the earthquake that year. One of the most destructive they suffered on Ecuadorian territory, by the way. And despite knowing that her beauty was her greatest attribute, I'll say it again, and that she would have a guaranteed career in the world of modeling, she also knew that having a career or university studies makes life a little easier. So she enrolled in the Technical University of Babahoyo in the Ecuadorian city of Santo Domingo and began to study social communication. Thus, as the years went by and she reached adulthood, Landy had to start alternating her daily activities with her work as a model. Both parts of her life were recorded on her social networks, where she was very active and gained large amounts of followers daily. This fame acquired in a short time would also be what would put her life at risk, especially due to the people she came across on her path. But let's not jump ahead in the story. Let's take it one step at a time. By the time 2019 arrived, Landy's popularity had reached unexpected levels. That year, she was crowned as the Vice Queen of Quevedo, a significant achievement in her career that added to her titles of Miss Tourism of Quevedo and Miss Mesoamerica Ecuador International. These titles would be the first to catapult the model to instant fame. Here she began to take her first steps in that environment, something that would encourage her to present herself just 4 years later in the most important beauty pageant in the country, Miss Ecuador. a dream for many girls and young women who want to showcase their beauty and represent their homeland on one of the most important stages at the national level. And so Landy became one of the 18 young women selected to compete, and on the runway she not only demonstrated her beauty but also her intellect to an entire country that was paying close attention. Her beauty obviously did not go unnoticed, and while she was not the winner, that much is clear, she was among the top 5 voted, which is a very good achievement, making her one of the most popular among the public. And by the tender age of 20, she had managed to fulfill one of her biggest dreams. Now life continued and there were no limits to what Landy could achieve. It was time to take on new challenges that would establish her in life. The next step in her career would be to become an entrepreneur, and with a lot of effort, she managed to found her first venture, an import store for home products named Landy Store. Once established, she decided to continue and keep satisfying her ambitions and taking advantage of the support she had from her followers and fans, whose numbers were increasing day by day, and decided to found her own sportswear brand now called Landy Fit. It was well received and generated good sales from its only commercial point, which was her online store. It was clear to see that the model had no intentions of stopping and using her title as a social communicator. She began to make appearances in different media and to have her space in podcast programs where she was invited to talk about the most diverse topics. Her performance as a speaker, her charisma and intelligence made her one of the most popular guests on various independent projects. Even filled with projects, ambitions, and new ideas to develop in the future, she never stopped having time for her family. I repeat to you again, she was a good person who this family accompanied unconditionally at every step of her career as a businesswoman. And you can realize everything seemed to happen in the most organic way for the girl, who was having the success she had always dreamed of, that she always wanted, and the life she so longed for. But of course, all her light has its dark side, and the young woman's life was no exception. But it wasn't long before her name began to make headlines for reasons that neither she nor her family could imagine. In December of the year 2023, various media outlets picked up on a case that would mark a before and after in local news. The Metastasis case, considered the largest corruption case in the history of Ecuador. This was the name given to a judicial process where a nationwide mega operation was carried out, resulting in the arrest of former judicial authorities, prison officials, businessmen, lawyers, members of the public force, and leaders of criminal gangs, among others, for their alleged involvement in a corruption and drug trafficking plot. Then, at the beginning of March this year, another case was made public, dubbed Parraga, which, according to the prosecutor's office, is a consequence of the Metastasis case and seeks to continue the purification and cleaning of corrupt institutions in the country. In this way, and in the early morning of December 14th of that year, 97 raids were carried out that ended with 28 suspects arrested. It was said that all this corruption work was being orchestrated by one of the most dangerous men in the country, Leandro Norero Tigua, a criminal linked to the Loñetas gang and internationally wanted since 2019 for his connection with drug trafficking. And then this man was in charge of bribing people with a lot of power, offering them money, goods, cars, jewelry, and other items in exchange for favors through illegal financing in judicial processes and granting penitentiary benefits to certain people. In May of 2022, Norero was captured in his mansion after a raid in which millions of dollars in cash, gold bars, jewelry, and other valuable things were found. And in this way, and from this situation, he was taken to prison to continue giving orders and maintaining contact with other members of different criminal gangs. Obviously, it didn't take long until Norero lost his life as a result of a shootout between prisoners at the detention center where he was awaiting his official sentence. In fact, it is said that his death was planned and executed by another criminal gang, but this is something that to this day cannot be proven. And now you might be wondering, what does all this have to do, Pepe Misterio, with the protagonist of our story, with this beautiful woman? Well, here it goes. Because about a year after the death of this criminal, A video was made public showing the contact he had with powerful people, along with a list of names of the people involved, both those who had power within the government and people who were listed as possible accomplices. Among them, as you can imagine, was the name of Landy. What was his link to the case? Now you must be wondering. Well, the model's name had come up in a text message conversation that Norero had in July of 2022 with one of his most trusted men, Felipe Angulo, whom he called by the nickname of Estimado. Angulo served as the criminal's lawyer and was in charge of carrying out the bribes to high-ranking public officials. Thanks to this, he managed to get the information to keep his boss informed about the processes that were being carried out. And in fact, in one of the conversations, he informed him that he was being investigated for money laundering. Thanks to some infiltrated police officers, they discovered that the prosecutor's office had ordered an investigation into an import company, coincidentally, the one that was in Landy's name. Taken by surprise, Norero mentions to Angulo that the company is not the model's, but belongs to a partner of hers named Cesar. It was later known that it was Cesar Litardo, a former president of the National Assembly, who had been introduced to Landy by the same drug dealer. Now you understand everything that this girl was not so good then. He then asks his lawyer to do everything possible to remove the model's name from the investigation and makes it clear that under no circumstances could the woman's name be in any way associated with him. The reason, well, Norero was afraid that his wife would find out that they could have had a connection. According to his words, from the whole process, she has to be removed, otherwise my world will come crashing down. He was very involved in the drug trade, but feared his wife. There then, he had achieved what was asked of him, since the model was never formally linked to the investigation, and it is said that to achieve that purpose, he was demanded the exorbitant sum of $300,000. It is also said that the model could have been the criminal's mistress, and many say that if it weren't for this relationship, she would never have risen in the world of catwalks. But I repeat again, it is said these are pure gossip, pure sayings. It is also said that there is evidence that the young woman had received payments of $2,000, $3,000, and even $4,000 from judges who had to return money to the drug dealer, with her acting in some way as a front for this man. Of course, I repeat, all of these are theories, but the drug dealer's fear that his wife would hear the model's name linked to his case would make sense. Finally, as I mentioned before, Dundee was not linked to the case, and she also did not comment on the information that was published, that although nothing could be proven, this information would be crucial for something that would happen less than 6 months later. It was Sunday, April 28th of the year 2024. Landis was sharing a lunch with his partner, the plastic surgeon Jose Luis Betancourt, at a ceviche restaurant located in the La Cuadra shopping center in Quevedo. The night before, they had both attended the wedding of one of the model's closest friends. A celebration that had been captured in the stories of the model and influencer's Instagram profile, where she could be seen enjoying with her friends and loved ones. That same Sunday, taking advantage of the outing, she had shared a real-time image of her lunch, a plate of octopus ceviche with a fried egg. Sharing images in the moment had become something normal for her, and perhaps it was also what led her to come face to face with her fatal destiny. Her lunch went smoothly, but there was something that made her feel alert. The security cameras showed that Landy got up from her chair somewhat fearful, as she had noticed some unusual movements outside the premises by a group of people. And suddenly she seems to talk to Jose Luis and try to decide what to do in this situation. It was a robbery, something was about to happen. It wasn't until they were about to leave the premises that the situation completely got out of control. Two thugs with guns in hand, wearing caps and masks to hide their faces, burst into the restaurant with one goal, the young model. The first of the criminals advances towards her without hesitating for a second, and once close, starts shooting until the young woman falls to the ground. Her boyfriend throws himself against some seats and shields himself with a table, which he would soon realize saved his life because they also shot at him. Already on the ground, lying on her back, the hitman points at Landy's face and pulls the trigger before starting to retreat. The second man approached behind his partner and with certainty decided to strike with another shot at the young woman before fleeing the scene in an unknown direction. The young woman lies lifeless on the ground with the coup de grace while her partner had emerged unscathed, although he couldn't get out of the state of shock. And it only took 6 seconds for this couple's day to turn into a scene straight out of a horror movie. Ironically, the model had posted a photo on her Instagram profile days before with the phrase, "Life is an echo, what you send out comes back to you." Premonition? Or perhaps she felt some guilt? Who knows? Only she will know or knew. The authorities arrived at the crime scene minutes later and took both their mobile phones as evidence in an attempt to find some detail that could help decipher this mystery. Who could have wanted to commit this crime? Of course, the first suspect is Leandro Norero's widow, the Colombian Lina Romero Vargas, who could have had clear motives to want to end the model's life. The woman had been under house arrest since the day the raid was carried out on her mansion, but there is no information on whether she was indeed the one who sent the thugs who took Landy's life. After the crime, receipts of alleged money deposits that the man had made to the model while they were having their extramarital relationship were made public. But on the other hand, and sadly, Landy was buried in her hometown of Quevedo on April 29th of the year 2024, surrounded by privacy and enhanced security to prevent any kind of attack on her family. Ecuador has been experiencing a wave of limitless criminal violence for some time now. By the way, before the model's murder, the news had echoed the assassination of 2 mayors. In January, President Daniel Noboa declared a state of internal armed conflict in an attempt to combat local gangs and cartels from this country, Mexico, which were beginning to settle in Ecuadorian territory. In fact, there are theories that Norero could have faked his own death to escape from jail, and that he continues to orchestrate attacks from the shadows, including the model's murder. Although there is no evidence to validate this theory, it doesn't seem far-fetched either. They are simply theories, I tell you, but it's not so far from reality. In the world of drug trafficking, anything is possible. Similarly, the investigation continues to determine the reason why this girl's life was taken and who is or are the heads behind this attack, but at the moment there is no answer or clues leading to a possible suspect, which is very likely to remain that way. Similarly, the truth is that Landy ended up crossing paths with the wrong people in life, and perhaps it's easy for us to think that these are the meetings one has to avoid, but like all humans, sometimes it's necessary for us to make mistakes, even though sometimes those mistakes end up costing us our lives. But in the end, who are we to judge the life of a person who is no longer with us?